So we're going to continue worth or self-value. Because really this is what affects our behaviors the most amongst all of the aspects or concepts that exist within the realm of tazkiyah or psychology, if you may. This is Islamic psychology one way or the other. And Islam has its own paradigm and its own understanding of the human psyche and how it functions, and it has its own diagnoses and it has its own solutions. And that is an important piece, meaning when you talk about human psychology, this is something that's evolved over the centuries, and what exists today is a paradigm that's actually quite close to Islam, but there are differences, and those differences, some of them are differences that we can reconcile, and some of them are not reconcilable. They're actually quite different, and it's important to kind of have a grasp or understanding of these differences, and especially if you're studying psychology, I think this is something that you would want to understand appropriately. We're not here to talk about your value to other people and how other people see you, or how people around you value. That doesn't matter. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about how you behave when you perceive that. I'm here to talk about what you do if you perceive that to be high or perceive that to be low. I'm not here to talk to you about how you're going to build up value in the eyes of the community that you live in, or the government that you serve, or the people that surround you, or the family that loves you, or your friends around you. I don't care about that. I'm here to talk about what are you going to do if you perceive that value to be low, or if you perceive it to be high, or if you're motivated by increasing it, or demotivated when it gets decreased. I'm here to talk to you about that, because that's what really matters to you. The other piece, you go to life coaches and all that other garbage, and they can tell you how to go and live your 100% self and all that other stuff. I don't care for that. What we're here to talk about is how you perceive how you perceive yourself, and what motivates you in terms of the things that you do, and what you do when you perceive others to have an opinion about you in general. What I've talked to you about so far in terms of sources that people derive their self-value from. We talked about comparisons, and yes, last week I talked to you a little bit about achievements. We talked about the concept of achievements one way or the other. The third point that we're going to talk about a little bit today, to help you is the opinions of other people, which is one of the biggest ones of all. And from it, a lot of Islamic problems, they're rooted in this problem. If you take your self-value from opinions. I left it till the third because it's probably the most complicated of them all. I wanted to get comparisons and achievements out of the way, so you have something to refer to as we go along here. If your pendulum swings based on what people think about you, which is the single most powerful source that people use to derive their value, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Achievements, to a certain degree, are that, because achievements are what you do to allow others to see that you have value. So basically, your achievements are what motivate people, give people a reason to see that you have value. And comparison is the same thing. When you're comparing so that you can feel better, that others, once they look at the two of you, will see who's better, and you'll be happy with that. So really, all of the two problems we've talked about so far, the two sources, are one way or the other very much attached to people's opinion in you, or what people think about you. And this is going to be the most difficult one for you to detach. The thickest of the cables that are connected to this pendulum of yours, the thickest of them all is going to be what people think about you and their opinions, and how you deal with that. And I can't solve that problem for you in this session. It's going to take a while for us to get there. But it is something that you have to start thinking about, and thinking about what you're going to do regarding it as you go through life. And people express opinions about you. People say nice things or bad things, or see people say certain things to your face and other things behind you, and how that affects you, and should it affect you, and if it does affect you, to what extent should it affect you, and based on what should it affect you? Like, what is your basis for this having any? Because we can't go around saying that that society does not have effect, or should not have an effect on people's behavior. No. Society should have an effect on people's behavior. Because without that, you don't have amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. You have no way to actually preserve ethics and values. Like, you need a way to preserve collective ethics and values. I mean, talking about the population, the community. How do you do that? You have society that has opinions on people. that praise people who are ethical and loathes people that are ethicless. That speak highly and give space and respect to people who are moral and take it away from people who lack morality. Without that piece, it's a social punishment and a social praise. It's helpful. Without it, you kind of lose the effect. But as a person, to what extent do you allow that to affect you? And what is it exactly? Because if you say there's no effect at all, then that's really that's a pathological narcissism. Like if you can't care at all, you don't care at all what society thinks is right and wrong, then that's a certain degree of narcissism. At least it is early on, meaning early on in your development as a human being. That's a red flag if you don't care at all. Later on, as you move through life, you may arrive at that conclusion, but it'll be you cannot start with that conclusion. This is one of the very interesting aspects of human psychology. Meaning this conclusion of not caring what people think is the healthy one, is the one that I want you to arrive at. But you have to start from a position of caring. If you start from this is the only example I can think of, and I don't really have other parallels to draw for you, and this is why I find it hard to talk about it, because I don't have examples to give you. Everything else in Tazkiyah, if you can achieve the outcome right away, go for it. Just go for it immediately. This isn't one of them. Not caring about what people think is not what you should arrive at immediately. You have to start somewhere and then arrive at that. You have to take steps to get there. If you start at it, then you have a problem, and we have to sit down and talk about it. If you if you don't care at all about what people think, meaning it's one of three things basically. But if you start there where you care, and then you build up to not caring, that's the healthy piece. Why am I saying that? Because when you're growing up as a child, really what motivates you are the words of praise that you get from your parents and your peers and your teachers, and that's what you crave. You look for it. It's what moves you forward. You don't want to hear a bad word, or you want to hear a nice word, and that motivates you to do things, right? What I'm trying to teach you is that this should not affect your self-worth, right? That's the whole point of this of this module. That it's not attached to your self-worth. But without it, at the beginning of your life, we have trouble. At the beginning of your life, if you don't care, imagine having a child who's arrived at this piece of wisdom. If you have a 6-year-old who has this piece of wisdom, who knows people's opinions don't matter at all. What people think of me matters not. There's nothing you can do. Unless their IQ is 300, where they can sit down and talk to them about this stuff. Like they have an intricate understanding of human psychology, and they're willing to, then you have almost no leverage. There's almost nothing you can do to motivate this child because they're still undeveloped. They don't have the ability to understand some of these very complex concepts that I'm explaining to you that are part of your experience as a human being. So you need the kid to crave attention, right? To crave praise and to be afraid of criticism or negative feedback. And that will motivate them to behave. If you use it too much, then you can break it. If you give a child too much negative feedback, they'll stop caring. If you give them too much praise, they'll stop caring. It's a balanced approach that you have to have as a parent. If you don't know how to balance it out, then the child will become numb to one of these two things, which will later on affect them, by the way. It'll affect them when they come to attend Adnan's Halaqah and Tazkiyah. Like if they come in and they're not making sense of this, it's because a parent was went too much on one side of this as they grew up. So it's going to take a while for them to be able to kind of sort through their own psyche to figure out what it is that affected them. Because we are very much motivated by people's opinion in us for a long time. But then you have to help yourself here, arrive at a conclusion where no, that shouldn't be the case. And you snip it off. And you don't derive value from what people think of you anymore. Or else you can continue your life, basically, just trying to please people. Well, which people are you going to try to please? All of them? You don't know all of them. And you don't know what they want. And you can't. You cannot ever achieve everyone's pleasure in you. That's impossible. With certain people, so if certain people that you're going to please, then those people control you. They control you. They control your destiny. They control your behaviors. They control your mood. They control your emotions. They control your levels of achievement. They control your self-worth. And if you take your self-worth and you hand it to someone else or to a number of people, and they collectively, their opinion in you is going to dictate your self-worth, then you're in trouble because now you don't control that anymore. You've given it to someone else. You understand the problem here? That this is something that is very, very specific about you. I'm using the word self at the beginning of it. It's self-worth. Why is self-worth in the hands of someone that's not the self, then it's worth. It's not self-worth. It's worth. I'm not here to talk to you about worth. I'm not here to talk to you about worth. That's a very different game. Worth is going to depend on what you do and how much what you do is needed. And then the value of whatever accomplishments you bring forward to the human race. And that's a whole different ballgame. No, who knows? I'm here to talk to you about self-worth, how you feel about your value and your worth. That's what we're here to talk about. And if you give that to someone else, then you're in trouble. Right? If Allah Himself made it constant, meaning He does not hold it over your head. Like if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself does not hold it above your head and say, you don't do this, I take away your value. If Allah doesn't do it, can people do it? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not do that Himself, are you going to allow other people to do it to you? So that's why this is so very, very important. So let's go back to what I defined for you last week, because this is where this topic is going to become important, is wrapping our heads around this definition. When we define our innate self-worth or self-value, we accept it as a constant value that is granted to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a divine right. It's a divine amount that never changes. And it's based in the potential that always exists in it, that never goes away. The potential of you achieving Jannat al-Firdaus. Every moment you have the full potential of being extremely close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making it to Al Jannat al-Naim. Because at every moment, each and every one of us, at every moment in our lives, have that potential. Because of that, that's how our value is the same. If at some moment, at some given moment, we were alive and your potential of being close to Allah was different than mine, meaning if you tried your best and you put all of your efforts in pleasing Allah, you couldn't only make it so far, but if I do it, I'll make it farther, then there's a difference in terms of our innate value. But there isn't. We all have that same amount of value because we all carry that same potential. There's nothing for you to prove, which is why the Malaika performed sujood to Adam before he did anything. The Malaika were not brought to perform sujood to Adam at the end of his life, after he showed that he was someone of great piety and great ethics and great... No, because Adam did show that in his life. Adam alayhi salam, when he left Jannah, after he made that initial mistake, he lived a life of greatness. He raised and he taught and he educated and he stayed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor all of his life. What makes sense is that the Malaika performed sujood and then, right? Because he's now achieved the goal. Go ahead and prostrate, show him respect. But they didn't. They did it before he did anything. Because it had nothing to do with his achievement. It had everything to do with his innate value that Allah gave him. And the potential that existed within him. And when the Malaika weren't clear on why that was the case, they didn't understand why they had to do this, Allah taught Adam al-Asma and gave them an example. Here, go ahead, speak. So they understood. What did they understand? They understood the potential that Adam had. Because Adam was able to learn and then to articulate and then to explain and to show depth was something that they'd not ever seen before. So for them it was the potential that Adam alayhi salam carried within him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear to the Malaika and to Iblis and to Jinn that this creature is of great value. It doesn't really necessarily mean that he is more valuable than them. But it's an acknowledgement from everyone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His Malaika and the Jinn, that he is valuable. So that there is no longer any questioning of this topic. This, what I'm explaining to you now, is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ended the discussion on before Adam alayhi salam was even truly there. Like before he fully understood who he was. Like before he came to full consciousness and full self-awareness. Before he could speak and think and understand anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this issue clear. Adam was created, usjudu li Adam. Lima khalaqtu biyadayhi, he told them. With that which I created with my own hands, or however you want to understand this term. And when Iblis said no, and he used that term that he shouldn't have used, and khayrun minhu, I'm better than him, he brought forward the problem that I'm trying to help you get rid of. Because he started to look at things, he lost sense of this piece, and he allowed himself to derive value from his actions, his achievements, what he did. He missed the goal completely, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to correct him, and he gave Iblis a chance to fix it, but Iblis refused to. And he argued that the essence is better. I am fire, and he is teen. The essence is better. And that was his demise. Iblis' demise was this problem, was this lack of understanding this issue. But Adam alayhi salam and all of his descendants, before they did anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear within the universe their value. So he was witness as the malaika and the jinn, or at least a representative, were commanded to do sujood, to establish that innate value that they will always have. Adam didn't have to prove anything, and neither do you. Adam alayhi salam did not need to prove anything for that to happen, and neither do you. That piece has been taken care of. You can relax. You can relax, and you can chill. You have nothing to prove in terms of your self-value, in terms of your value is you're a human being. Nothing will take that away. You'll always be that. And you will always be equal in your humanity to every other human being that ever lived and ever will live, and that is a fact. And that is divine. That is a divine command. It's a divine ruling. It is something that is muqaddas. It's a haqq muqaddas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, so it doesn't matter what people say. If people say that you are the best that ever lived, you're no better than me. And if you say you're the worst that ever lived, you're no worse than me. We're all the same. But then we have to come and understand, well, okay, how do you understand behaviors and actions and impact? And how do I motivate myself? Because if you are someone who is quite, if you're very confident, right? If you figure out what humbleness is, right? If you figure it out, if you understand it's that middle, that moderate position where you are confident regarding how you see yourself, and you have humility in terms of how you see others. Humility is just that sense of equality with people around you. And confidence as in you're happy, you have acknowledged that divine value that Allah gave you. That's what it is. And you end up having this calmness. What you end up having is this inner calmness. You're stable. There's nothing, people who have something to prove, they lack that stability. They're always jittery because there's something that they have to prove. They have to get someone's approval. They have to prove that they were good at this. They need to show Fulan that they were right. They have to show Illan that they were strong and capable. They have to. So they're driven by that need to prove their worth in this world, and to others specifically. And those who don't have that are much more calm and confident. But what happens to those people? And I gave you an example. I run into a lot of people like that, most of them non-Muslim. And it has nothing to do with Islam. It has to do with where we live. Because we live in a part of the world where the victors, those who are victorious in the last 300-year struggles, right? The sum of the last 300-year struggles, those who ended up on top, this is where they live. They live over here in parts of Europe. What does victory offer? Because here I'm talking to you about the religious understanding of it. But if you're not religious, how do you get this? Can you get this? Sure. If you have an innate belief that you're victorious, that you are strong, you're capable. That innate belief, if it's pounded in you, that you come from a long lineage of people who won, so you're a winner by birth, then it gives you some degree of confidence. Now, there's a problem that comes with that I'm not going to talk about right now, but it does give you that confidence. They become confident, and if within that narrative you are told all people are equal, then you'll also have some degree of humility and humbleness. And you'll run into people like that. They're very confident and they're very humble and they have no problems. But what ends up the problem with most of them is the lack of motivation, is they become lazy. What happens is they become lazy. Because the strongest motive still is, till this day, one of the strongest motives and the easiest and the cheapest of them all is just getting people to feel that they have something to prove. It's the cheapest and the easiest way. Just make them feel that they are not seen to be worthy, or that they make them care about your opinion and then put them down in it. If someone feels that their self-value is not stable, or they feel scared about it, or they feel that it's threatened, then that continues to be, till this day, the cheapest and quickest motive that exists in the world. If you want to move people quickly, if you want to move people quickly and unwisely and right off the bat, you just make that, give a threat, an existential threat to them, that somehow, and that's what happens. Most wars basically are built on that. How you get people to rally around something. You have to tell them that this is an existential threat to your identity, to who you are. And it serves really well. It gets people very upset and very angry for a long time. The problem with it is that it's cheap because it's not real. Because once they come to the realization later in life, almost everything I'm explaining to you right now, at a certain point in your life, you will realize. Like later in life, when you're, so I don't have a lot of older people attending. It's like, yeah, we know this. By the time you're 75, you don't care anymore. You figured out that it was a mirage. You figured out that it was an absolute mirage. It was all a big lie. I don't know what was I so upset about? What was I doing? What was the hype all about? Why did I care what Fulan thought about me? He's dead. It doesn't matter anymore. He's been dead for. Why did I care about this? Why did I care about these people? Look at what they've done in their lives. Ya Latif. All the masayib that they caused. Why did I care about this? Who was I trying to prove this to? Your father? Well, your father passed away 50 years ago. Like not even here. Like at the end, he didn't even remember his own name. So you start asking the question. So even just with age, you run into it. You're like, I don't know, and you calm down. But by then it's too late, and you don't want to. Khalas, you just let it. You just stop talking about the whole topic because it becomes painful. It becomes painful because when you've lived 50 years of your life motivated by one thing, it's hard to sit there and admit that was wrong. It was a mirage. I shouldn't have been doing that. But everyone comes to this conclusion one way or the other. So how do you motivate people to do things then? Because what I want you to walk away with, want every Muslim to feel, is that Ya Ammi, you're valuable. Ghasban anni. Like whether I like it or not, whether I state it or not makes no difference. This is something divine. It was granted to you by the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one can take that away. No one has the ability to touch that. They can say what they want about you. They can make statues and throw tomatoes on it all day. It doesn't make a difference. You have that value that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted you. What Allah grants, no one can take away. And you have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove. But what's going to get you moving? Well, think about the Quran here, because this is very simple, by the way. What I'm saying are the basics of the deen that you already know. Wallahi, I'm not telling you anything that is not already, you've not heard a million times. I'm just trying to put it for you in a package that helps you, inshallah. Yeah, you deal with it appropriately. What are the motives that the Quran uses for people? Think about that. When the Quran motivates you, does the Quran motivate you based on your self-worth? Think about this. Go through your mind of all the verses you've read in the Quran. Tell me where the Quran tells you to do something using your self-value. The Quran has 3 motives and 3 motives only. And none of them have anything to do with your self-worth. The Quran will motivate you either through just punishment, telling you that if you do this, then you're going to get in trouble. Nothing to do with your worth. It has to do with pain and loss of ease, and you're going to be a place that's adhab alim wa muqim wa azim. That's what you're going to be. Or reward. You're going to be heavily rewarded. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you that which you don't even have the ability to imagine, give it to you for a very long time. Or He motivates you through love, and He tells you, I gave this because I love you. Show me some love back. Do you have the ability to respond to the love that I gave you with love as well? And the answer is, of course, yes. And those are the 3 motives that we have in the Quran. It's basically self-preservation, really. I don't want to be in pain. I want to be in leisure. And I want to experience beautiful things. That's what that just a self-preservation. Value is not brought into this equation at all. You see, if you did bad deeds and your value dropped, that means you're not worthy of being punished to begin with. Now, it actually would have worked out for a lot of people. Like if you did the wrong thing and it dropped your value, that means khalas, your value now is, astaghfirullah, someone's value is closer to the value of an animal or a non-living thing, then there's no punishment. It's because your value doesn't change that we're going to be punished if we don't choose something. Are you understanding what I'm saying? It's because your value is divine and innately set, it's constant, it's not changeable, that when we do bad things, we are going to be punished. If bad deeds dropped our value, then it would drop it to the point where we were no longer worthy of being punished to begin with. Just like when animals do things, there's no Jahannam for them, khalas, they just stop existing. So if you could do things that would drop you to that degree, but no, it doesn't matter how many bad things that you do. It doesn't matter how evil you are or how evilly you behave. Because your value is constant, you're going to have just punishment or just reward Yawm al-Qiyamah. Or if good deeds put you on the other side, then there would be a point where there's no longer any need to do good deeds anymore. Because your value is so high that khalas, you're already now in Jannah. You're already seen as someone who does not require, like, if good deeds increased your value, then it would increase to the point where there's no longer any need for you to continue to do good deeds. You can just sit there and bathe in all of your what you've produced. But if the Prophet ﷺ had to pray every fard until he passed away with the sunnahs and be in caution of Jahannam and in caution of that's how he lived ﷺ, and that's how the people whom he told they're in Jannah lived to the day they died. If they had to do that, then why is that? Because it has nothing, because they're very separate domains. Your value is constant, and because it is, and because it's divine, all of what Islam is and all of this experience is possible. If the argument of increasing and decreasing self-value existed, then this whole experience would not be possible. Like the whole thing would be wrong. It'd be rigged and it'd be impossible to actually. You do good things and you elevate to the point where you're not required to do anything, or you go down to the degree where what you do doesn't matter anymore. But because we are equally valuable, everything we say matters. And every deed that we perform matters. It's important. So you motivate yourself through something very different. And that's the problem. Quite frankly, this is the problem. That we read the Quran and we listen to it telling us that إِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ كَانَتْ مِرْصَادًا. We read it. ويل يومئذ للمكذبين انطلقوا إلى ما كنتم به تكذبون انطلقوا إلى ظل ذي ثلاث شعب. We read this. وأما من أوتي كتابه بشماله فيقول يا ليتني لم أوت كتابيه ولم أدر ما حسابيه خذوه فغلوه ثم الجحيم صلوه. But it's just like, well, we almost treat it as some cheap motive. Forgive me for saying this. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying. We almost treat it as, fear. Fear is for children. Is it? You don't get scared. You have no fear. You don't mind being in pain. It comes from a place of arrogance where we don't want to admit that we are. That's where it comes from. It's a lack of willing to admit that we are just as scared of these things as a child would when they listen to it. But when we put ourselves into a status, intellectual status, where we see that no, fear is not for me, it's for the simpletons. I'm not scared of them. You may not say that out loud, but I can guarantee it's a part of the psyche, where we start looking down on threats, where we see that them to be something. Yeah, look down on threats that are coming from an equal, for sure. If I threaten you, chill and be cool. You'll be fine. Just a person. If you threaten me, same thing. But when God threatens, to treat that as equal to a threat that you get from a human being or a government or a group of people, no, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's where the problem actually comes, is that we have decided that we don't want to be motivated by the motives that the Quran gave us. We've actually, in a certain way, decided that we prefer this motive. We prefer to be motivated by proving our worth because it gives us the potential of ending up being more worthy than other people. We like that risk. We like that is an option. It's attractive that it's an option. That if I may lose, it's a roll of the dice within this life, and I may lose, but if I don't, I can actually, if we're all playing this game, If what I'm saying is all garbage and you can just throw it away, and what the truth is, yes, there are better and lesser human beings, and value does change within this world, if that is the reality of the matter, then I have the option or the potential that it could work out where I end up being better than everyone. I may not, but it's there, and I like that risk. And this whole thing where we're all the same, it's all bland, we're all exactly the same in terms of our value, and all that's going to motivate me is I don't want to be in a position where I'm being punished for something wrong I did, or I don't want to look at reward as something. We look down at reward. We have been told that it's beneath you to look at reward, to do something based on hoping to get rewarded. Don't act like what I'm saying you haven't heard before. We act like it's something that is, it's whatever. I'm not going to go do it for reward. Yes, if it's a reward that a human being is offering you, then yeah, don't do that. Do it for. But if it's Allah who's offering the reward, what do you mean? I understand that when it comes, I understand you not wanting to be motivated by fear and desire from equals, from peers, from human beings, from large groups of human beings. But from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means you don't understand who God is to begin with. And this is, again, a central problem within this whole story. Self-value comes from understanding the value of the one who granted it. You can only understand your self-value if you understand who created you and who put that value in you. And if you don't know who He is, subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you're going to continue to struggle with this until the end of time. If your comprehension of yourself is that you just came from the earth, then yeah, it's just whoever's stronger, whoever is bigger, whoever's eating more, whoever has more. But if you understand that you were created by the divine, by the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He created you equally, and your value is based on a divine decree that came from Him, then that's a whole different paradigm of understanding your humanity and who you are. Completely different, because you are extracting your value from the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when He tells you punishments for this and rewards for this, of course you're going to be motivated by this. Because it's not coming from me or your friend. Yes, I don't motivate myself by a reward that was put out by a bunch of people. Well, if you do well on this, we'll give you this ja'iza. Or a threat that is made towards me from other people. Why? Because they're peers. I don't respond to that. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, here's what the punishment is and here what the reward is, am I seeing that the same way I see reward and punishment threats or offers from peers? Maybe. But now I understand why shirk is such a problem, right? This is why. Because what shirk does is it equates between God and His creation. The closer they are together, the more you will find this to be the same. And the more tawheed you have in you, meaning the more of a difference it is in your mind and your heart of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and who we are, then when you threaten me, but when Allah does, no, that's all I listen to. That's all I care about. That's all I think about, because He is the divine. He created me and gave me my value, and then He said, if you do this, this is what happens, of course. But this now turns you into a paradigm of the centrality of your life being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The center part of your existence, your being, becomes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created you, granted you the divine value, and then He gave you the motives of what you need to do. That's why a lot of the time we try to focus on love. A lot of the time, shiur, when they're talking, they try to focus on motivating people through love, because we feel that love is an elevated motive. It's a beautiful motive. And I agree, it is. It definitely is. Do you understand how hard it is to put yourself in a position where you do good deeds out of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You understand how far down the road that is for most human beings, and how most of us will only be able to achieve a very small amount of that? But punishment and reward, that's right there. You don't need to be well educated for that one. And you don't need to do a lot of work either. It's very clear. If you know who Allah is and you trust what you're listening to, meaning you're listening to the Quran and you actually accept the threats and the offerings, the good tidings that the Quran is giving, then you're going to respond to that based on your knowledge of the one who is making these words, or saying these words. And that becomes your main motive. And that's what's going to get you up running. And that's what moved the Sahaba. I know I know that this is why Islam was sent to the Arabs specifically. The main reason was that Arabs had this. I don't know exactly how, but they did. The Arabi had to figure out a way to centralize or justify his value as a human being within the world he was living in. Because if he didn't, it would be very hard for them to survive. So the Arab what they had to do is they had to find a way to protect themselves from the opinions of other nations and what others say about them and how they look at each other, because they were not doing well on any front. Like there was really nothing that they could go and pride themselves with at the time. So they had to raise themselves with this constant value that wasn't taken necessarily from God at the time, but it was this self-worth that they had that was quite admirable, and it was constant, and they held to it. And they learned to respect other people who had it too. Like they as a society, there was some homogeneity amongst the Arab, at least the nobles, that they had all of this. They didn't think they were better than other people. Even though the tafakhur was a big deal and the reason that it was a big deal, the reason that if you look at any other nation, you won't find a nation that had one of the focuses of social life being fakhr, aside from the Arabs. Go look into history. You don't find this thread. It's very specific to the Arabs. Meaning, Arabs would dedicate days a year where they would gather, and their only purpose was fakhr, was to try and show off how noble you were, but through poetry and through just bragging rights. Like people usually use bragging rights as something that you hide, you don't talk about. No, the Arab, they made a day for it. They're like, come, brag. You're done? Now I'll brag, right? So this was why? Because they had established something. So when Islam came to them, all that they had to do was to kind of just remove some of the icing off the cake. Just stabilize this piece. Use that confidence that they had built innately. Rearrange where they got it from. Change where they derived it from. And then they were able to function well. They were able to be motivated by something different. They were able to motivate themselves not by self-worth. That wasn't what drove them. Not at all. They didn't care. They didn't have anything to prove. They weren't trying to prove that they were stronger or better or smarter. They didn't care about that. They were very happy with who they were. And they were very confident in it. They were driven by the fact that the Quran told them that if you don't go and do this, then this is what's going to happen as an outcome. And if you do this, here's the outcome. And you have these two outcomes that are so different and so distinct and so relevant to the human experience that there's no other way to live. Like there's no other way to imagine life. How could you do it? You have to think about this with me here. You really have to think about this. Because we claim that we accept certain things, but then we don't really think about them deeply enough, and we ignore them. Talking about these two outcomes. Because in any other given example in this world, if you were offered two outcomes similar to the ones that the Quran is offering, then there would be no discussion whatsoever regarding how people are going to be motivated towards what they're going to do next. Let's go for Salat al-Maghrib, inshallah, and then we'll continue this right after Sunnah. Subhanakallah bihamdik, shalla la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Actually, the points I want to make. You may ask, well, if that's the case, Sheikh, if it has nothing to do with my self-worth or my self-value, it's not fluctuating, this is the motivation, I should have a certain degree of confidence and humility with that. And I should be very calm about it because I have nothing to prove, but rather motivated by what I've been told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of punishment and reward and the love that He has granted me and the motivation to show that love back or express that which He has granted me, Jalla Jalaluhu, which is a higher level of expression. But if those are my motivation, then why is it that the Quran continues to use these terms? That, for example, the one that I used in Salah, asfala safilin, right, and a'la. So this terminology of high and low. So this terminology is not based on value. It's based on effort. If it was based on value, then the people in Jannah would not be satisfied with it. It would bother them. If you're in Jannah, you're told that you're less valuable than Fulan, right? Because you're lower in Jannah. But as far as we know, what's been explained to us about Jannat al-Na'im is that people in Jannat al-Na'im are actually quite happy. Everyone is. The lowest person in Jannah, in terms of their ranking, in terms of what effort they put in, versus the person who's the highest ranking of Jannah, they all, you know why? Because they all feel equal in their self-value. The ranking is based on merit. It's based on what they did. And there's no questioning about who did more and who did less, because who made the judgment on who did more and less? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no wondering if maybe al-wasta, nepotism allowed that person to be ahead and not, and my hard work was ignored. No. Everyone's work is going to be evaluated equally beyond you don't have the ability to evaluate the work properly. Like even if you want, you couldn't do it because everyone's starting from a different point in life. Everyone was dealt a different hand and everyone went different. All of it is going to be proportionately judged appropriately, where every variable, every circumstance, every aspect that would affect the outcome is going to be taken into consideration. Equations that we don't even have the ability to comprehend are going to be used to judge how far you went. And then you will be in the spot based on it. You'll be in a spot based on how much effort you put in. That will be fair. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the ground is level, then the taller ones and the shorter ones, it's not going to be fair. Right? Equity is making sure that we take into consideration every variable. That's what we're going, and that's what happens Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's why everyone comes Yawm al-Qiyamah to be held accountable alone. It's not a bingo game. You don't sit there and you just check box. If you did this, check the box, based on it. No, that would be, that's what we think is going to be. It's not going to be like that. Ta'al lahalak, alone. You come alone. You put down the curtain and you speak to God by yourself. Because your story is very unique, and there's going to be a lot of unique aspects of how you're going to be judged that will be different than the people around you. The general guidelines are being offered so that you can follow them. Like the general guidelines that you have right now in terms of iman and kufr and amal salih and amal sayyi, so that you know what to do. You need something. Like I need a roadmap so I can figure out how I'm going to behave. If you don't give me a roadmap, I'm not going to know how to behave. You got to tell me, if you do this, you get that. You do this, you get this. If you leave that, then you lose this. I have to explain to me. But then Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's going to be a completely different thing. I mean, your judgment, there's a lot of factors that play into how you're going to be judged Yawm al-Qiyamah, where you're going to end up ranking. It's not about your value. That's why the most famous people in Jahannam are the lowest, not the highest. In Jahannam, what's better, to be in the higher parts of it or the lower? Of course, you're better off in the higher parts. Probably the people in the higher parts of Jahannam are not as well known as Fir'aun and Iblis and whoever else is at the lowest part of it all. So it's not about value, it's about merit. So even the usages of the Quran that talk about these things, the Quran is very good at balancing it out. It always does. As I go through Juz' Amma, for example, an example that's going to come up very soon, you're going to listen in Surah Al-Nazi'at as Allah talks to us about this. He'll say, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاءُ بناها رفع سمكها فسواها وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها. Are you stronger? Are you more powerful? Or are the cosmos that He created? When He lifted look at the sky and the earth and the mountain. Are you stronger than these things? Or are they bigger and more powerful than you? No, they're bigger. But you see all of them? مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ. I just created it so that you can enjoy it. You and your animals, the animals that you end up riding and eating, let them enjoy it as well. So it's that, understanding this balance that He granted you, subhanahu wa ta'ala, in terms of the value that He gave you. Yes, you have, so that you don't become arrogant. At the same time, you don't lose and think that you're worthless. No, neither apply. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَحَمَلْنَاهُم. We have granted Bani Adam takreem. We have given them, we have designated them with high value, with great importance and significance. This was granted to you by creation. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِمَا خَلَقْتُ بِيَدَيْ, something I created, biyaday. The word yaday in Arabic is my hands. We don't know how that applies to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that's what He says. ثُمَّ نَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, and I blew with it. This is if you were to translate this in human language, I blew of my spirit in him. Now how you translate that to God, who knows? No one understands. But it's divine. It's of great divinity. Every person sitting here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you with His hands. بِيَدَيْهِ وَنَفَخَ فِيكَ مِنْ رُوحِهِ. Every person, even the worst of us, like even Fir'aun, خَلَقَهُ اللَّهُ بِيَدَيْهِ وَنَفَخَ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِهِ. Whether you like it or not. Like, مش على كيفك. It's not up to you. Even think of the most evil of evil people. He's not worth me using his name here. Right? I'm not going to use his name. But think of the person you think is the worst human being. غَصْبٍ عَنَّكَ. Allah created him بِيَدَيْهِ وَنَفَخَ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِهِ. So there. It's not, you have no say in this. This is what He did, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Understanding how it's not fun though. That no one likes this. Because we want to believe otherwise. No, keep that thick swinging, ya Sheikh, so that some people can be garbage and some people can be great. So that I don't know where I'll be, but at least I can aim to be. No. There's no garbage and great. It's all the same. It's just what you do and you don't do. That's it. It's just what you decide to do and you decide not to do. And you have to figure out how to motivate yourself appropriately. You have to figure out how to make. I believe that the Qur'an's motives are much better, much healthier, and much more powerful in the long run than the motivation of just trying to prove yourself all the time. I cannot tell you how tiring it is to continuously try to prove yourself. The reason that we have a lot of anxiety and a lot of burnout and depression in our societies is because it gets tiring after a while from constantly trying to prove that I'm worthy. Islam came and told people, you don't need to do that anymore. You are worthy because you're human. Because Allah created you بِيَدَيْهِ وَنَفَخَ فِيكَ مِنْ رُوحِهِ وَكَرَّمَكَ. He gave you all these things. Take a pill. Just sit back, chill for a second. All right, now that I did that, now what? What's going to get me up to do my work? Well, then figure that out. Some people haven't, so they wasted their lives. They gamed their way through their 20s. They gamed their way through their 20s because they couldn't figure out anything else to do. And even then, they didn't really understand this appropriately because they went into rages and broke because they derived value from how good a player they were. Like they couldn't help it. Like if you don't understand it correctly, it's not going to work. There's nothing. It's always, shaitan, nafs is always going to find a way. It's always going to find a way to ruin it for you. But if you can understand that piece, then you can look at the Quran and motivate yourself through what the Quran is saying. And the motives in the Quran are very, very powerful. Because the one who is speaking is the one who granted you this whole thing. And imagine if you took it seriously. Like imagine if you were sitting all in this room and let's say a human being, let's not say something beyond. Just a person walked in, stood over there, and you had a weapon and we couldn't do much. And he told us, if you behave this way, I'm going to torture you to death, and if you behave this way, you're going to walk out and there's $1 billion waiting for you in your private jet. Maybe you don't believe it up front, but then a few of us make some choices, and one of us actually gets and leaves, and the other one gets. After that, the choice is pretty much straightforward. The choice is pretty much, you may not do it willingly. You may do it disgruntled. Like you may do it not even wanting to do it. You don't think that this person is worthy. But you'll do it. No one's going to choose the other. You just choose this one. It's just, so if you truly believed, if our nafs truly believed what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, the premise that He's offering, that I created you from nothing, so it's not oppression. See, the reason you don't like that example of the guy standing there with the gun is because it's oppression. It's oppressive. You don't want either of it. You don't want his jet and you don't want his torment. You want him to leave because you don't believe in oppression. And I agree with you. I agree. That's a good point. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not oppression because He created you from nothing. You are because of Him. You would not be. There would be no consciousness to begin with. You would never existed at all without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's no oppression here. That's number one. Number two is that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking you to do is not of harm to you. Maybe this guy standing there with the gun is telling us to do something stupid. Maybe okay, if you do the chicken dance, then you can go outside and get your jet. Otherwise, maybe you don't want. It's a stupid thing to be asked to do. You don't want to do it. So, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He asked you to do was actually extremely elegant, of high moral, of high ethics. The best of you actually comes out when you do it. It brings out the best part of who you are as a human being. It is collectively helpful. The outcomes of it are very sustainable and are beneficial to everyone involved. So there's no reason for you to despise what you're being told to do. It would be much more difficult, by the way. Like this whole equation would have been much more difficult if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands were self-destructive. Like if they were destructive and harmful, then it would be harder to make the argument. Well, He's telling me to do things that are very difficult to do. I don't want, and there's no point of doing them to begin with. It's hard to make that argument. But when He creates you from nothing, so there's no oppression involved, right? And He commands you of a lifestyle that is anything but, all it is just elegance for you as a human being. It's sustainable for you on a personal level and a collective level. And then He attaches it to outcomes that are very distinct. Like they're so distinct that there's no way to miss it. If the difference was maybe 10 degrees, then okay, I don't know which. But the difference is between ongoing pain, which is the only thing that the nafs understands, by the way, is pain. It doesn't like pain. Remember we talked about mortality. I told you that there are two things that death and pain. Death, only the nafs is afraid of. The spirit, the ruh, is not afraid of death because it knows that death is just a transition. The nafs is scared of it because it doesn't want to stop existing, right? But pain, both are afraid of. Every aspect of you is afraid of pain just like me. Every aspect of me is afraid of pain. That's what we try to avoid. So he's telling you the two outcomes is either pain, every type of it, physical, psychological, social, financial, every part. And the other outcome is bliss. Every aspect of it, psychological, financial, social, physical. Then how is this even a discussion? Like, why is this even a discussion to begin with? Like, why are we even talking about this? Who's actually objecting to any of it? Like, right? This makes no sense. This is a given. And then to add to that, he made a motivation saying, and this is all through the power of the love that I have for you. I created you, I love you, and I taught you to feel love too. And if you do this, then you will start to understand what true love means, and it's something that once you understand and you comprehend, you will find nothing more beautiful than it. Like when you feel true love, khalas, it'll be the alternative to this garbage is love. Like the alternative to all the stuff there is just you're motivated by a strong feeling of love, right? So this is the story that you're given. This is it's elegance. It's everything, every aspect about it is elegant. Then why doesn't it work? Or why isn't it working? Because there are fundamental problems in the way we understand all of these steps. Because everything that I shared with you, there's an actual distance between us and how we understand it, or how we're supposed to understand it, or belief in it. There's distance. There's distance between me and how I understand God creating me. Meaning when I look at it, well, why he didn't ask me my opinion? Somehow that's important. Right? So we all carry on to this little stupid thing that Shaitan put in, and we just hold on to it, and we use it every once in a while to demotivate ourselves. Well, he's telling me to do all this stuff, and it's quite difficult, and he could have made it easier for me if he wanted to. He didn't, if he really cared that much. Astaghfirullah wa hasha lillah. I'm just saying it was... And well, I mean, if he truly loved me, he wouldn't put punishment to begin with. Then so you just have all these little satanic thoughts that you've anchored in the middle of every step to make sure that it's deactivated. So it doesn't really exist. And then you end up with this empty, it's a dead circuit. This whole thing doesn't work anymore. And then instead of seeing, and before that, if you want to, if you may, if you take a step before that, if you don't understand God properly, like if your understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not that He is the Almighty and He is the Divine subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you see Him not to be that, then His threats and His desire and His offerings and His tidings don't carry the weight that they should. My threats and desires should carry a certain weight for you. It's very small, but it's there. There's a weight to it. You can't say it's zero. There must be something. But what's the weight of the tidings and threats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is that? That is going to be based on how you understand Allah to begin with. So if there's a problem understanding Allah, and you have all these objections about everything that's being told, then yeah, none of this is going to work. And then we just reside back to what we were told as children. We go back to our childhood memories, where if people say we're good, then we're good, and if people say that we suck, then we suck, and I just go around looking for people's opinions and approval. And if someone who once approved of me doesn't approve of me anymore, then I try to look for someone who's more powerful than him to approve of me, despite him, and to feel better about myself. And enjoy that miserable life. Go ahead. See how far it takes you. See how much pleasure you actually are going to get out of this existence of yours. Go ahead. Live it that way. Live it. What a horrible way to live. Well, what a horrible way to live. To live based on what I think others think. Here's the thing. Even when it comes to people's opinion, it's not even their real opinion. It's how you think they think about you. I don't even know if I can talk about this one, because it's going to take me another 5 hours. It's not really what they think about you. It's what you think they think about you. You don't even know what they think about you, because everybody lies and everybody gives compliments, and you don't know what they're thinking. Do you understand how delusional this is? Like, you understand to what degree this is delusional, where I am basing my self-value on how I think you perceive me? Not how you perceive me, no, how I think you perceive me. This is not even a mirage. This is even beyond that. Like, this is beyond the mirage. Like it's not even, like wallahi, if it was solid in terms of, like if it was really what you thought of me, wallahi, okay, fine, we can have that discussion. It's not even that, it's just what I think you think about me. I don't really know what you think about me and how disappointed I'm going to be in my life later on when I find out what you really thought. You want to know? Watch what happens when a great person falls. Like watch what happens when a famous figure slips. See how many daggers come out of the woodworks of people who once praised them, and watch, see it. It happens all the time. بِقَضَاءِ اللَّهِ subhanahu, it's always happening. And I think it's always happened so that you can continue to take the ibrah from this. So you can learn, no, it's nothing. It's nothing. You see people of great status, of great fame, of great, people admire them. And then they fall, they make a mistake, and they get caught. And then the daggers come out. And then everyone who once, no. This is not to say people are evil or anything, but it's not. Don't base any of your self-value and worth on what you think people think. It's just a waste of time. So this, when I show you this pendulum, there's no other way to see this. I'm telling you, this is the only way to save yourself. Otherwise, this will swing viciously all throughout your life. It will swing viciously back and forth all the time, where you're trying to prove yourself. If you feel that you did a bit more and people think highly of you, and then you feel a bit vain and arrogant. You think it's confidence because that's what you're a good person. You want to think that you're confident and humble, but really it's just masked. It's really vain and arrogance in the background. And then someone says something bad about you or something happens and it hurts you and it swings viciously and you feel less about yourself and you feel less in comparison to people. Then you have to go ahead and find some way to swing it in the other direction. Ever thought about that piece? When it swings this way, what do we do? We're going to talk about this. I'm going to discuss this with you, inshallah. But what do you do? How do we swing it? We have to find some way to swing it. That's where we lash out. That's where we have these little tricks that we play so we can try and swing it. People who run out of those tricks sometimes end up stuck there for a while. That's where depression kind of hits in because you can't seem to get it across. Or if you chronically hold it on the other side, you can't. If you just stop swinging altogether. If you just stop deriving any of it from any source that is variable. And it just stays nice and calm, right in the middle. You do have to hold it there, mind you. Because the nafs will always be connecting every time you look away to try and motivate. And you're going to disconnect it and hold it down. As life tries to swing it for you right and left, you'll hold it down. To stay confident in who you are and humble regarding the people around you. It's a really nice way to live. And it allows you to focus on what really matters in your life, like what you want to do and why you want to do it and what you're trying to achieve with it and where you're going with it all. It changes the paradigm of existence, and how you see other people and deal with them is different as well. And it takes off a toxic edge that we're all carrying. And I'm going to end with that because I want you to think about these topics. I don't want to too much information, but just think about this, inshallah, until we talk next week. I'm going to give you maybe 10 minutes for questions. Historically, this has never worked, so I've given 10 minutes of question and then nothing. But the moment I get up and walk, then there's always 50 people with 50 questions. So I'm going to offer 10 minutes for questions. If you want to ask a question, you can put your hand up. I was supposed to have a QR code, but I don't have one right now. But we will have one, inshallah. Go ahead. Yeah.
What's the difference between humans' innate value and jinn?
Yeah, we don't know. So we don't know, not only do we not know the difference between the value of a human being and jinn, we don't know the difference between a human being and jinn and malak and whatever else Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. We don't know. And there's nothing to say that we are better than jinn or jinn are better than us. There's nothing to say that. And it's not even to say that we're better than malaika either. Like there's nothing to say that. What malaika and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the malaika to do was an acknowledgement of innate value. Not an acknowledgement of superiority. That wasn't the goal of this, right? Or else, you see, that's why it happened before he did anything, alayhi salam. If it happened after he did everything in his life, it would have been a much more, like, that's why the Quran is divine. Because if it happened afterwards, everything I'm saying would be, like I couldn't defend anything I'm saying, and it would have changed the whole paradigm to begin with, and it would have changed the way we look at things. But this sujood that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded happened before Adam even took a breath. Like nothing happened yet. It was just at the beginning. Why? Because it was just an acknowledgement of value. And the question becomes, what does it matter if the value is more or less? See, here we're not talking about, again, we're not talking about general worth. General worth, as I told you, is something you can't establish. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes. And He held on to that knowledge. So it's as if it doesn't exist, because if He is the only one who has that knowledge, then I don't know, and there's no point in me asking the question, right? Here, what we're talking about is your self-value. The value of another creation, and who knows? I don't know. I have no way to compare myself to them, and there's no reason to do it. So I just hold it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will decree Yawm al-Qiyamah in terms of information to us, whatever He wants to decree. But what He did make sure that we knew as a universal story that exists in every faith is that the malaika were told to yusjudu li Adam, and they did. and Iblis didn't. Now, why Iblis didn't, I have to hold on to that for another day, because that's a whole different, you have to grant me the time to explain that piece, because that's very much attached to our experience as well. Which the question is up there, but I'll answer it inshallah in another day. Bidnillah ta'ala. Go ahead.
Is it possible to have yourself value as both like and also the output that you provide?
So the output that you provide.
So like yourself value as both, like not only one or like not either innate or like based on your outcome, but like as both as a combination.
So it's either innate or is variable. Anything in life is either constant or it changes, it increases or decreases. You can't, logically speaking, you can't have something that's both constant and changes. So because your output or your outcome or what you do, that's variable. I don't know. You don't. Allahu Alam. Inshallah, you do well, but we don't know. Like, we don't know if you're going to or you're not. So it's something that's in the air. It's variable. It may be up, it may be down. And if so, self-value is either this or that. Having them both doesn't really, which is the whole point of this argument, is what I'm trying to explain to you, is that most of the time we see it as B, meaning it's going to be based on what I achieve and how far I go and what I've done and how. I'm trying to tell you it isn't. It isn't. It was defined and declared and established a very long time ago. It's never going to change. Still do all this. Still achieve and make outcomes, but just do it for a different reason. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Don't you want the ajr? If you're doing it for this, how are you going to get ajr? If you're doing all these actions just to prove your value, then how are you going to get ajr? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to tell you, well, you didn't really do it to please me. You did it because you had something to prove. Now you say, well, I'm trying to prove it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, then I'm telling you, you don't have to. You don't have to prove your value to Allah. He's already established it for you. He wants you to do it for reward, to avoid punishment, and for love. That's what He wants it for. He doesn't want it for proof of value, because what are you going to prove? He created you with your value. What are you proving? There's nothing to prove. You're proving to Him that there's nothing to prove here. Now, and even if I use that terminology in talks, I'm using it, or when it's used in talks, it's used as majaz, figuratively speaking. It's not used as actual, meaning when we talk about tazkiyah, I'm very specific on the nomenclature of the terms, the psychological terms that I'm using. But you'll hear it from Mashaykh, even I'll say it every once in a while, to prove yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not talking about value here. I'm talking about merit, your ability to show that you care enough, not to prove your value. So it's a different, it's important to kind of differentiate between what we're trying to say here. But you can't have something both constant and changing, or non-constant at the same time. That's a logical impossibility. So that's why I'm arguing that it's this and not that. Wallahu alam. Yeah.
You mentioned about the Arab having something in place. You mentioned it somewhere else about women as well, having some kind of nobility.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, there was like this innate understanding of their self-worth. So nobles, Arabs who were from good lineages, men and women, were both very confident in who they were, like extremely confident in who they were. They did not doubt themselves ever. They were maybe a little bit on the vain side to a certain degree, but they had enough of it that confidence allowed them to benefit from the teachings of the Quran. Like they benefited more from all of this because they had that set. It's hard to fill something that's empty. It's easier to empty something that's a little bit too full. To fill something that's empty requires it's a resource now. Like you need to get a resource, you have to put something in. But if it's already full, or it's a little bit too full, then you can get rid of a little bit to get to the right amount of it. So that's where the Arabs were. They were even though they had no reason for it. Like they didn't have any great accomplishments, historically speaking. I'm not belittling them, but we're all Arab. I'm belittling myself basically if I am. But that's not the goal here. It's to say that they had built it on something different. Right? Something that was closer to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala later explained. So they were closer psychologically to what the Prophet ﷺ said about human beings, so it was easier for them to grasp it. If they were farther away from it, then this basic concept that I'm explaining to you would have been the reason that they refused deen altogether. Like it would have been a real problem for them. And we know that because the other aqwam, the other nations that accepted Islam, most of them, if not all of them, and I don't want to say that, but most of them didn't accept Islam fully. They accepted the parts of Islam that they liked, and they refused the parts that they didn't like. And this, till this day, is a well-known aspect of it, where what they liked about it, they took, and what they didn't like about it, they didn't take. So today, you still come to my village today, and people still don't give women their inheritance. Right? Still, till this day. Yeah, in essence, we're Arab now because we speak Arabic. We're not Arab historically. We come from other parts of the. Why? Because people would accept parts of the deen and other parts they wouldn't. The Arabs were at a position where they were able to accept the basic concepts, like the fundamental values of the deen, quicker because of this little piece that they had. Because really, what does an ideology do? I want you to think about this like abstractly. If you just wake up to the world and you're sitting there and there's people running around and buying and selling and eating and talking, and before you get hungry and you want to go and do the same thing, you wonder, what am I doing here? Who am I exactly? These are the very basic questions, existential questions that we all have. Where is this going at the end? What happens later? What's guaranteed? What's not guaranteed? These questions need answers. And then when you have the answers of the realities of life, you have to make sense of these answers and these realities. That's what religion, deen, ideologies do. They come and they make sense of all of this. They give you a way to understand it. So Islam comes and does that very elegantly. One of the main questions that we have as human beings is, who am I? And what am I? And what are all you? Because I'm very self-centered, just like you. What I want is to succeed. I want to do well. I want. I don't wake up in the night thinking about what you want or spend time thinking about how you feel. No, I'm focused on me. I only think about you when it's going to help me. And the only time I think about you when it's not going to help me, it's something to do with akhirah, where it's still going to help me. It's still going to help me. It's still going to help me for the akhirah. There's almost no way not to do it. Like it's very difficult. And people say, well, if people don't believe in God, they think about how it's going to help. They think about others, but it's going to help them in terms of their conscience. Their conscience is hurting them. They've developed this innate. They have developed a system of empathy that is it's like a revolving door, where their conscience is killing them. So they do this to feel less guilty about things. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. They're doing good things, but I'm talking about their motivation for it. I'm talking about, that's why philanthropists, when they lose that piece or they figure that out, it becomes a huge problem, because now they're in the position of helping people, but they have access to a lot of money and to a lot of others, and they can end up being very corrupt if they don't have the right motivation for it. So it's a very delicate piece of who we are, of understanding that. Yeah, I don't want to get too philosophical on you. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it was the first or second session we had in this module. You mentioned that one of the most dangerous things is to derive your value from your religiosity.
Oh, for sure.
Could you expand on that?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that inshallah a bit more. It's still. But yeah, if I die beforehand, then do whatever you want. Do not derive your value from your religiosity, from how good of a Muslim or bad of a Muslim you are. If you do that, that means your deen is swinging your pendulum that way. That's what it means. What it means is when you pray more, the pendulum swings that way. Is that what you want? Is that acceptable? Like, is it okay for the pendulum to swing towards arrogance and vanity if I pray more? Should it swing in the opposite direction? Of course not. Then what should it do? Actually, the religiosity piece is how I nail this completely. You cannot argue against it anymore, because tell me, you're going to fast Monday and Thursday and no one else around you is doing. So what's that going to do? Should that swing the pendulum? Imagine if it did. Imagine if it did. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That's one of the worst things. That's why when you learn your deen, you have to learn it appropriately. That's why you have to spend. That's why Tazkiyah is such an important part of our Islam. It's the third pillar of our ideology. There's Islam and Iman and Ihsan. You have to know Ihsan, or else the good deeds that you do can harm you. And we're going to talk about this obviously very clearly, because it's a big part of what arrogance is to begin with. We're going to destroy arrogance on dunya stuff really quickly. And I'm not going to spend all the time on that. If you have takabbur based on dunya things, then this is not the session for you. You need to go fix your problems. This is absolutely not worth doing. Takabbur only exists in issues of ethicality and religiosity. That's only where it exists. In dunya, it's pathetic. No one cares about that. Like, you're not threatened by someone who's just rich. Yeah, whatever. You're threatened by something else, and that's what we're going to talk about, inshallah. But yeah, very good question, and it is definitely one of the main objectives of this talk, of this topic, inshallah, as we move along. But in case I died, just to make sure that's clear. Yeah. Yeah.
On top of my brother's so self-value, I understand, is coming from creation, coming from it, and it's constant, right?
Yeah.
But things you do in life, I understand that has to be the goal. Is always there's an need for it.
Yeah.
But let's say in the industry, right? What do you describe the effort that you put to get exposure?
Wealth. So there's nothing wrong. So there's nothing wrong with being motivated by making wealth for yourself. Like there's nothing haram about that. It's when you act like you're doing it for some other reason that's a problem. When you mask it and say, no, I'm not doing it for wealth. I'm doing it to. People like to hide behind ethicality. We're going to talk. Okay. So this is because this is a big part of what we're doing here. Ethicality is a very attractive. It's where value actually exists for us. Deep down inside, it's not wealth and status. It's ethicality that we see value to exist in. So we have to find a way to see ourselves as moral beings. We have to. If we don't, the whole idea of value kind of goes through the door, or your understanding of value becomes very primitive. If it's just jungle law, it's just my muscle is bigger, and that dies off really quickly. Like you can hold on to that for a while. A primate brain can hold on to that, but when you get a bit, you can't do it anymore. You have to look for something else. So you hide. So there's nothing wrong with having your motive being making wealth, and there's nothing wrong with making wealth to take care of your family and give sadaqah and take care of other people. That's all khair. So it becomes a means to an end. Like getting exposure, for example, in industry, is to make more wealth, so that I can use it as a means to an end, which is to get financial stability and financial safety for myself and my children, and to give more and to put money into mashari'a khair that I believe are there.
But isn't this you're trying to raise your value in front of people?
Is it?
You have to see your worth.
Your worth? Why is it your worth? Why is it not the product's worth? Like, why is it your worth? Again, it's just how we've been. It's how we've been programmed all our lives, right? It's not the worth of the talk I'm giving you. It's the worth of the subject that I'm offering you, not the talk. The talk is honestly mediocre at best. Like this setup, the timing of it, where it is, the quality of what I'm offering you, mediocre at best. Inshallah, it's even that. It's the topic itself. The topic is what's valuable. This is just the best I can offer you. It has nothing to do with my worth at all. It's just, I tried my best. That's why I was able to put forward. Hopefully I get feedback. I try again. Next year it's a little bit better. It's a bit more polished. It sounds a bit better. If I derive value from it, then I'm going to be out there saying, was it good? And then you're all going to see it in my eyes and say, oh, Sheikh, amazing. And then I walk away feeling good about myself. Or the opposite. If I want to seek proper feedback, I have to be able to, I'm not looking for people to be mean just for the sake of being mean. No, it's just more, give me the objective or the subjective to the best of the ability of your objectivity. Like what can you tell me that makes sense to you so that I can take that and say, okay, does it fit? What have I done? That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you improve anything that you do. So you want to get exposure. It's not your worth. It's the worth of what you've made. So if you invested, remember I talked about this, if you invest your ego in your work versus your heart in your work. I haven't kind of broken this down yet, Yanni, but think about that, please, as we go along. What are you investing in what you do? If you invest your ego, that's where, when you come and tell me, Sheikh, this wasn't very good, I get very defensive. And I get really upset. And I'm up against the wall, and I fight back, and I push back, and I don't let you give me my point, and I call you, because I invested my ego into it. It's me. You're not actually criticizing the work. You're criticizing me. And that's affecting my self-value. If I don't invest my ego, like I don't put my into the work, I invest my heart, like I try to do it the best I can. And my ego is completely separate, meaning my self-worth, which is what ego is, right? which is, sorry, next week's kind of topic is kind of taking the word ego and making sure that because you listen to it a lot and make sure that you understand that that's what self-worth is. You remove your self-worth from it, then when you come in and criticize it, it just becomes, yeah, that's true. That could have made it much better. Jazakallah khair, I'll do that next time. I'll add that to it. It doesn't bother. Understand the difference? It makes a huge difference in how and it allows you the ability. That's the only way to actually grow, by the way. There's no other way to grow, aside from being able to disconnect. Otherwise, it's very painful. You learn this in medicine really quickly, by the way. Like medicine forces you to learn this because for the first maybe 5 years of your training as a resident, you suck. Everything you do is wrong. Like every patient you see you didn't do a good job. Like it's wrong. And if you have a good mentor and a good physician who's working with you, they're going to be constantly correcting you and telling you that's not how you say this. So if your ego is invested in this work, you're not going to learn anything. You get really upset. You're going to send nasty emails to people because they said this and this triggered and this made me upset and this. Versus if you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing, teach me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to become a good physician. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. And they tell you and tell you and tell you. And then khalas, after a while, you become good. Those are the people who become really good, right? Those are people who become really, really good because they're just taking constantly, even after they are, they've been doing it for 25 years, they'll still be told, maybe you can do this better. Oh, yeah, actually I could. There's no end to how much you can improve in life if you're willing to understand this appropriately. That's why actually we're doing this, because growth requires this. Improvement requires this. Collaboration requires this. Every khair in the world requires this. What do you think ruins teamwork and unity? It's just egos. Everyone knows that. No one talks about it. That's all it is. It's just egos. Just two guys didn't like each other. Khalas, the whole deal is off. It's the whole deal. Wallahi, continents will suffer because two guys sat in a room and their heads were too big. There was enough space for their bodies in that room, but not for their heads, and they couldn't get over it. And you couldn't make something that has to work, must work, should work, but then the egos are too big. You can't make it work. Wallahi, if you know the percentage of problems that exist in this world just because of this, it's just endless. It's endless. Most problems are just based on that. Wallahi al-azim. And you know that. Sometimes we don't think about it. We get desensitized and we normalize it. But then when you start really thinking about it, yeah, that is mostly why these things don't work. I didn't like their personality. What does that mean? What does that even mean? That's a sentence that is meaningless. I didn't like their personality. Nah. What? Define personality, ya akhui. Define the word personality. Oh, I don't. Okay, well, what didn't you like? Oh, I didn't like, the way they spoke. The way they spoke. Explain, please, a little bit more. Explain it. If you challenge people, give me the nitty-gritty. Explain, become granular. Tell me exactly what you didn't like about this person. And what will end up being is some moment of body language that they perceived as arrogant and made them feel bad about themselves. So now the whole thing is off. That's what it is. You understand how silly it is? It's just a moment of... Now, I'm not saying that you don't trust your gut. No. This halaqah is not so that I kill off your gut feeling. No. You need your gut. Keep your gut. Your gut feelings are important. But make sure that you are rational about how, because what does your nafs do in all of this? Your self-value, see it for your choices in life as a cloud. It just clouds your judgment. It just clouds your judgment. When you remove it, and you're not investing your ego, and you don't have, and the pendulum is not swinging, you're not driving value, then your gut feeling becomes really good. Your gut feeling becomes it becomes so powerful because it's not based on the swing anymore. It's actually based on, you've been watching people for a while, you've learned patterns. You saw a pattern here. It made you scared. You took a moment. You thought, you asked, you figured something out. You dodged a bullet. Good for you. That's important. But when the ego is invested, it's just a cloud. You can't see things clearly anymore. You can't make judgment that's clear anymore. So I'm not talking about removing your intuition. No, you need that. It's one of the most interesting parts of you. But you have to know what is intuition and gut and what is just an ego swing. What was just a threat that you perceived from someone. You perceived they treated you in a way that made you feel threatened, so you decided to retaliate by ending this relationship altogether or taking, remember when you were a kid? Remember this? I used to do this all the time, right? When someone threatened me, I picked up the ball, took it home. I had the ball. It was my ball. Now I left 13, 14 kids sitting around. They can't play anymore. Children, that's what children do. You play, he says something about the way I played. I don't like it. I pick up the ball, I go home. Next time he won't say anything. You won't threaten my majesty again when we're playing. It's my ball. And then someone else gets the ball, and then I lose my edge. I don't have it anymore. Now I have to take feedback like everyone else. Now I have to accept people saying I didn't know how to pass the ball properly like everyone else. I lost my edge. I just say these simple little examples that we have as children, they don't change. They just, like, in essence, they're the same. In context, they're different. Like, it's a larger scale, it's a bigger context, but it's the same stuff. It's the same basic stuff. I just feel like as a human being, wallahi, even if we weren't Muslim, as a human being, don't you want to evolve out of that? Like, isn't there a reason, I don't want to act like a decorated 3-year-old. Like, I want to kind of find something that's more elegant for myself, something that's more meaningful and profound. Well, that's what Islam offers you. It offers you a way of doing that is holistic, that has no holes in it, that explains everything. So you don't have any cognitive dissonance, and you can be very calm and happy about it. Wallahu a'lam. All right, we'll end with that, inshallah. Next time, I don't know what to do with the sisters. If they want to ask, maybe we give them a microphone. I don't know how to do this in a way that they can ask questions as well. If there are any questions from the sisters, actually, I should probably offer it. If there's anything, put your hand up. Okay, go ahead, please. So not just that hadith. Every hadith that used the word khayrukum or khiyarukum. How many hadith are there? There's many hadith. I actually did a full series on hadith that start with khayrukum or khiyarukum. I think I did 23 hadith. So is khiyarukum, it's very simple. Is it based on value or is it based on merit? Find the difference? Is it based on value? Is it based on their self-value? Or is it based on merit? The best of you in this. The best of you of doing that. It's what I talked about last week. When we say khayr, the Quran uses the word khayr. وَلَا أَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ. In marriage, to look for a lady who's Muslim is better than looking for one who is non-Muslim, because in marriage, there's a certain purpose. So when he says خِيَارُكُمْ فِي الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ خِيَارُكُمْ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ إِذَا فَقُهُ, meaning when they accept, people who accept an ideology, the ideology of Jahiliyyah, versus the ideology of Islam, though if they learn, then they'll be the best in their performance, the best in their actions, the best in their ethics, not the best in their value. So it's the same idea. It's a transition of, it's just a change of mentality or the way we look at things. Just using the words and not attaching them to something that we have grown accustomed to attaching it to, and attaching it to what is more meaningful. And that hadith becomes much more beautiful that way, by the way. That this person had made all the right choices, but with what he had available, and was doing all the right things, but the system he had was bad. Like, he grew up into a world and the system was Jahiliyyah. But he did all the right things. He asked all the right questions, he's making all the right choices, he's doing well. So this person, if he notices that the system he's using is garbage and this is the better system, he'll do really well because he had all the tools. And it's not based on value, but it's based on functionality. And I talked about this last time. I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit more, which is when the Quran uses khayr, it's better than it's talking about functionality, not about innate value. Wallahu a'lam. طيب جزاكم الله خير. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أحسن الله إليكم. Thank you for asking, sister.